So I was at dinner last night with some team that we're working with.
Yep.
They know who they are. Thanks a lot for the meal, everybody. And I had an Estrella Zero. Now, I had it back to back with a pint of ordinary Estrella. Now, as you know, and lots of people who know me know, I'm not at all a lager fan. But the only IPA was 6.5%, and I didn't really fancy that early in the evening. So I had a proper Estrella and a Zero. And do you know what? It was all right.
It's all right. It's coming on, isn't it? You're seeing it all the time now.
I know.
Keep seeing that mocktail's going to be the next big thing.
Is it? Oh, that's interesting. Is that not just alco pops? But done properly, I suppose.
Bit of hoop,
Real ingredients.
bit of hoops down the park. It's my childhood. Not childhood. Adolescent.
Profession
caveat.
slipped out there. If Richard's mum's listening, no, he was 18 before he started drinking. Honest.
Yes. No, I haven't actually tried much of the Zero.
The no low, they call it.
Is it?
Well, we must pop into that shop. Here in Shrewsbury, we've got a shop dedicated to no alcohol, low alcohol drinks, beers, wines, gins, whatever. Let's pop along to see that. And we still owe each other that Guinness Zero we took last week. I did think about bringing one in this morning, but those of you listening won't know, but it's very early in the morning to say.
Is that okay? Is that okay to drink a zero alcohol?
It feels wrong.
Can we? That's an interesting one for your office policies, isn't it?
Guinness Zero for breakfast.
No drinking on site, but what about zero alcohol?
No alcohol policy. But that's a bit like vaping and smoking. No smoking, but I'm vaping. Gosh, we'll have to update our policy.
My goodness.
Yeah.
We've opened a rat's nest there.
There's a can of worms. Can of beer. All right, should we do a podcast?
Yes. Let's get on with it.
Hello and welcome again to the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow. I'm Dave Parry, and with me, as ever, is Richard Buckle. Drum roll, please.
Who's just had a slurp
and a slurp. Just at the right
time then.
I did that, didn't I? Just not the same way they did that. Now, the exciting news is this is episode 20.
Who'd have thought?
Now, that is significant because when we started this journey, you looked up some stats.
Yeah. So apparently 90% of podcasts make it to 3 episodes. So we smashed through that. And
surely you can do 3.
Yeah.
I think 9 out of 10 people fail.
And then something like of the remainder, only 90% make it to 21 episodes.
So we're down to the last 1% if we do one more.
Yeah.
We're on the cusp of the 99th percentile.
Yeah, so one more. So I think our next episode, we're going to talk about our journey, aren't we? Of how we've got.
I think that'd be good. Well, for those listening, maybe you're interested in this or not. But some people, lots of people actually, who've listened to this and have fed back to us, have said that we're doing a great thing and they like the content and they like the style and all that. And that they're feeling guilty they're not doing it themselves. So
yeah, we should be. Quite a few people want to start doing podcasts, don't they?
That's the point. If they want to do it as well.
We're inspiring people to.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not quite.
Buy some kit. It's audio kit isn't that expensive. You can go to town a bit on the video stuff, but we'll talk all about that next month and give you a few tips from our experience. We've had some good bits and it's definitely improved through the way. It's not been perfect all the way through. But
might be employing some artificial intelligence to enhance our vocals.
And we need to do another AI podcast soon because that's already moved on so much that our last podcast now seems ridiculously folksy and out of date. So what we're going to talk about today. Now, this cropped up in the last couple of weeks working from a client, and it's a subject close to our own heart anyway, because we do end up getting involved a bit in sales coaching and business processes beyond just the marketing. So we thought we'd talk today about the sales qualification process. And before everybody turns off, falls off to sleep, there's actually a bit more to it than maybe meets the eye. So so how to rate an opportunity to decide what to do with it and how to behave with it and all that sort of thing.
And this is something I suppose many businesses probably grapple with. It's
do you think they actually grapple with it, or they think they should
do? Maybe.
I think they think they should.
It probably depends on. We were just having this discussion before we started with me. Who should be doing this? What kind of product? What kind of services?
Yeah,
businesses should employ some kind of sales qualification.
Yeah, I don't think many people do it that shouldn't. It's obvious, isn't it? If you've got high volume transactions, it's reasonably transactional, there's short sales cycle, all those sort of things, you wouldn't bother with this sort of thing. But for certainly capital goods, most business-to-business type transactions, certainly where you reasonable deal value, complex sales, I would say it should be done. I think there's an awful lot more people out there. But if you're a salesperson worth your salt, you probably know that this area exists as a topic. You might have read a lot about it. You might have read loads of sales books on it, but you may not be doing it. And maybe there's this problem with getting the rest of your team to buy into doing the same thing, and you don't want to do it on your own, or you've tried it and you find it a bit too cumbersome. I don't know. There could be all sorts of reasons, couldn't there? Just too busy, perhaps.
Too busy. Because there is a reasonable amount of effort that has to go into the sales qualification process to do it properly. There is. Yeah, to do it properly. I think the more you do, though, like anything, the easier it gets. It becomes more second nature-y type of stuff, doesn't it, really? Yeah.
So I think it's probably a lot of companies out there that could be listening to this thinking, "Oh, this is making me feel a bit guilty. I'd like to say to my boss or to my shareholders that we do have a good sales qualification process, but we don't." But why would you need one? Why would someone necessarily feel guilty about not having one?
I think one of the main drivers is around efficiency
of the salesperson, sales team,
and
or the business as a whole.
And the business as a whole. So, I mean, I guess it's fairly wide ranging, but you've obviously got the salesperson's time. There's been a number of studies done of how much time does a salesperson actually spend selling versus, I guess, back in the old days, travel was a lot more of a component of a salesperson's day.
And prospecting, which can be regarded as an element of selling, but you could also argue that's a bit of what marketing do.
So I suppose there's efficiency in terms of just, time management, but maybe taking that a step further over what actually should be the focus, which deal should you focus on if you've got more than, more than you can handle just by, if you've obviously got 2 or 3 deals in your pipeline, well, maybe not make a salesperson, but
well, or you're in a market where if each of those can represent a whole year's income, then fair enough.
So it's I think working at prioritization, efficiency, but also what we're seeing at the moment is around like looking at the cost. What does it actually cost to prospect and to qualify a lead?
Well, that cost of acquisition formula we've had before. Does the cost of acquisition, is it less or more than the lifetime value of the new customer? There's that. And then I think beyond, we touched on it just there, it's not just the cost from the salesperson's point of view, but lots of companies have a reasonable amount of cost involved in helping to put a proposal together and getting a deal over the line outside of the sales team. And certainly for technical sales, as soon as you're starting to get engineering involved or technical involved to be able to help architect a solution, quite often companies will do that for free just and regard it as cost of doing business, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as you press the start button on that resource, you can't sort of half do it, can you? Once there's a customer to talk to about their potential need, it's going to cost pretty much what it costs. So you've got to be very careful going into that process with your eyes open.
Exactly. I think maybe, that's where you've got to almost stand back a bit, haven't you, and look at it, because you could probably get a bit of sort of deal fever, can't you?
Yeah.
Someone that's interested, they want to, maybe buy our product, our service. Let's get everyone involved. We've got to get this proposal out, get it over the line, all that.
Yeah.
Everyone gets that kind of line fever.
The white line fever, summit fever, yeah. And arguably that's made worse by the remuneration models that we have generally in sales teams, where there's usually an element of commission or bonus or something, which doesn't really distinguish between one type of deal and another type of deal. It might do on gross margin perhaps, but even then I've seen most of them being based on sales numbers rather than margin numbers. But let's even say it was a bit more on that. You're not necessarily deciding which type of deal the business wants, as long as it's made it into the pipeline. Now, the qualification process we'll talk most about today doesn't include an element of that, but you could have a dimension for, is this a good strategic fit for where we're trying to take the business? Yeah, could do, couldn't you? So, I think there's a bit of efficiency and time management. The other thing that may be a benefit of having this sort of process is standardization. If everybody in the sales team are doing the same thing, you can see that being benefit.
Particularly if you want to scale and grow. Yeah. At the moment, building this process into playbooks, etc.
Well, handing off leads to someone else on the team as you get bigger. And also there's something in the CRM that everyone knows we use, the HubSpot CRM. There's an automatic process for deal rotation. And some companies do deal rotation as a matter of course. You let a salesman work a deal for a while, but if they can't get it over the line, it gets handed off to somebody else. Well, if you're going to do that, you need a certain degree of standardization and good note keeping otherwise you've got to start again from scratch. So some good benefits there. So what type of processes are there out there then? Now, they range from they're usually acronyms, aren't they, to start with?
Yeah.
They're kind of a mnemonic or an acronym or an abbreviation, whatever which one this is. And they can be quite long. So the one we're going to focus on today is BANT, which people may have heard of.
Yeah.
Budget, authority, needs, and timing. Nice and easy. Even I can remember that.
Yeah.
But there's loads of them. And I can't help, there's the cynical brain in me thinking, I wonder if there's so many of them, because if you could come up with a new one, then there's a book in that. And there's probably a whole consulting thing about it and a website.
The Wellmeadow.
Something for W, something for E. So.
Engage.
Yeah. I'm struggling already for the L. You need 2 L's as well.
Tune in next week.
Yeah, we'll come up with the Wellmeadow sales qualification process. But so BANT is quite an easy, but there's all sorts out there. There's Medics, there's Scotsman, I wrote this one down because I'm never going to remember this, but GPCT, BAC and I.
That one.
Remember that one? Learned that in sales training school. But I'm sure there's some very strong advocates of it that would absolutely swear by it. And none of these are wrong, are they? Flipping out. They're just ways of remembering different dimensions of a deal and then getting all your team to do the same thing and think about it the same way. But surely there's some merit in simplicity here.
Well, I felt like I was on an episode of Countdown then. Can I have a vowel, please, Carol?
That takes you back.
But yeah, I mean, what we'll do is we'll put a list of all these on the blog for the podcast.
That's a good idea.
So
yeah, let's make sure that's in the blog. List of the top ones.
If you're really interested, you can.
If you'd rather use
tune in
or neat rather than BANT or champ.
Well, I think in fairness, there is some, not accusation, but some of the comments around the BANT model is that it is simplistic, and maybe there's that's some of its appeal and some of its beauty is the simplicity. But depending on your business, there may be a more nuanced, regulatory environment or whatever it's in that maybe one of these other models fits.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And if you're going to think long and deep and hard about this and you really want to put one of these in, then go that route. My advice, I think, would be don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
And in your search for the absolutely best ever, if you don't get something in place for fear of having to change it, then you're no better off.
You could definitely spend more time developing a system than actually developing the pipeline.
Now, there's someone we know that does like doing that, because I think some people in some of these roles like developing systems. So let's talk about BANT a bit more then. So let's just go over the 4 dimensions. They sound obvious: budget, authority, needs, and timing. But it's probably worth just dwelling on each one just to make sure we understand quite what the nuances are.
Yep.
So budget, have they got the budget? That's the kind of the basic question, but it's still a bit simplistic, isn't it? You can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think, obviously, have they got who is the budget holder? Are you speaking to the budget holder? Those sorts of things. Are they?
They may say they've got the budget, but they're not the budget holder. So how do they know?
So and then things like have they got? I'm trying to think what the example was that we came across the other day.
Well, someone was asked, "Have you got £500,000 budget?"
Yeah,
and it was a global company, and the answer was a laugh.
Yeah,
I think we can find that.
Yeah.
So that's a good point actually, because it's not necessarily about have you got the money. It's would you be prepared to spend your money on this? So B, you could expand out a little bit more and think about, have you understood the value? Does your value perception exceed what we're quoting as a price? Does it seem like good value as a value proposition to you? So you could put all that under budget and talk about money things.
Yeah.
And that's why we maybe want to standardize the questions so that someone doesn't just say, well, I had the budget, and someone else says, yes, but they're good value. So that's B. It's the money bit. And at its very simplest, it's can they afford it?
Yep.
But maybe also, do they want to afford it? A, authority. Not as simple as it sounds again, because who does have authority on a deal?
Yeah. Well, and this is going to be context specific, isn't it? So it could well be that you're talking to the decision maker, and it's, I guess we were in a meeting earlier this week where we pretty much were speaking to a decision maker, and that could have been handshake and done.
Yep.
It could be that you've got 5 or 6 different stakeholders involved that you need all of them to sign off on it.
Yeah, and there's always a surprise one at the end. You think you've got all your stakeholders lined up, everybody's given authority, and then suddenly someone comes out of the blue that you didn't realise they all had to get the rubber stamp of, and didn't get it.
Does every stakeholder have equal weight?
Certainly not, but how do you judge?
How do you judge that?
So you'll have some critical ones. So certainly the budget holder, the person responsible for implementing it, they're going to be pretty key. Finance may do. You might have some other, health and safety, for example, might have to sign it off for environmental or
IT.
Security, IT, or so exactly. Understand who they all are, but that doesn't mean list them all and wait till you've got every one of them as a green light before you proceed. It's just on a scale of whatever you choose, 1 to 5, 1 to 10. Have we got authority people generally moving towards the yes, I will approve? But bear in mind as well, a negative is probably a greater weight than 3 or 4 positives. If you've got a blocker, if they've got power of veto, doesn't matter how many people you've got saying yes, one person with power of veto is all you need to stop it, don't you? So you've got to understand who has powers of veto. So authority, once again, more complex than you think. At its simplest, it's a yes, no. Does this person I'm talking to appear to have authority? But if you're asking about the deal and its whole, the company that's going to be having to agree, lots of elements with it. Okay, that's A. N for needs. Do they have a need for what we're selling? That could be simplistic again, couldn't it? We're selling this, do you want it? But there are elements, there are layers, aren't there, in what people sell. We do it all the time with what we're selling. We're providing a layered service. We're either helping people with their CRM and HubSpot implementation. We might be helping them with the content as well, which is the mainstay of what we do. We might be giving them more advice on marketing strategy than they've had before, which then can lead into business strategy and even business processes. So it may well be that they've got a need for one of those things only. Yeah,
and I suppose maybe you're into unknown unknowns or unknowns or whatever.
The Jira matrix or the Rumsfeld.
But it's oftentimes you come across someone who has maybe a need, but it's not the real need. And when you start talking to them, you uncover other needs, other use cases. So that's something there, I suppose, that we see that reasonably regularly, I think. You start scratching beneath the surface.
So if you're going to score needs, then it's almost worth saying what's the score of each of the needs that you uncover, even if you bring that up in conversation and it was an unknown and you make it a known thing within the customer and then they like it.
Or maybe who should be scoring it as well? Who is the right person to evaluate a need?
Yeah.
It may not be the salesperson.
That's a tricky one, isn't it? But you're right. You may want to get someone more technical involved, for example, or somehow engage the customer in helping you come up with an agreed score between you. Do you really need this? Some people I know try and anti-sell their products as a way of testing this. Try and talk the customer out of needing. Take them to a point, and then try and back away and see whether the customer comes with you.
Comes back,
So that's an interesting one. So that's needs, and then timing or timeline or whatever time. Once again, it sounds pretty simple, but it's, as ever, there's a bit of complexity in it. Have they got a timeline? Is different from saying, does it fit our timeline? Ones that I think relate to me quite a lot is around the budget cycle, especially if it's a largish item and it's going to need to be included in the budget. Well, it matters then, when is their new financial year, and are they having to wait until that starts to get it included in the budget? But you could include concepts of urgency in here rather than just known timing. Is this a burning platform? Is this something they've got to deal with quickly? Or is this a hygiene factor that would be nice to fix one day?
And if it's, I guess, is it too urgent as well as another thing? Do you want to...
Yeah, it came up the other day.
If someone says, I need this implemented by next week, and it's just not possible to do it, do you...
You walk away then. Or sell them something different maybe.
Different.
So you need a different solution for that problem, but let's do our solution to stop the next one.
So it's...
Something like that. Yeah, okay.
So
that's a bit of a more exhaustive discussion on what everybody thought was a simplistic, it's just BANT, only 4 things. Actually, you can have layers within that and subsets. So I suppose the next question is, well, having got those 4 general areas, what are you going to do with them? Are you just going to think about them and write something down under the B bit of your deal record, whatever it is, and there's something else down, for a bit of free text? Or are you going to try and come up with a score? Or, how do you use it?
Well, I suppose it's an interesting point. Have you even got BANT on your deal record? So that would be the first, if you're recording information about a deal, does that even include some element of a BANT qualification
or one of the many equivalents?
One of the other equivalents. So that's
Or are you just relying on the salesman putting something in free text?
Yeah, or free text or notes, or I spoke to so-and-so and they're happy to go ahead or whatever. So
we would certainly advocate building that into the properties or the fields or whatever you call them in your CRM against the deal record.
I suppose there's a balance here, isn't there, between a lot of what we're trying to get the balance between sort of a quantitative, how can we score BANT, and there's also an element of qualitative because sales is a relationship-driven.
Yeah, it's people. People are messy. Yeah.
So it's
a subjective thing. But ultimately, at the end of it, you want to be able to say, how are we doing on BANT on that? Or just forget the acronym. How well qualified is this deal?
Or to be able to look at the aggregate of all of the deals and say, right, where are we at with 30 deals at this stage of the pipeline? Which ones do we think we should focus on?
Is that 30 low quality deals or 30 high quality deals? Or
where's that? And BANT can be a quantification of a BANT can be a way of analysing those deals.
Yeah, and of course it's not the only way, but in organisations that don't have anything at all, it's as good as any we found as starting this journey, even if you change it later. So I would say move it away from free text and build it into your standard deal record in some way. Back to your standardization argument, if you're going to hand it on, you want someone else to know where to go. And in the aggregate, how do you add it up if it's all in lots of different places? So that's true. Move away from the free text. But even if you had drop-down options of standard text, so let's say under your budget, say yes, they got a budget, or yes, they got a budget, but it's not applicable for the next financial year, or you've got 4 or 5 different nuances of yes, that's still just radio buttons being ticked on a list, isn't it? What do you do with that? So you've got to, how do you then turn that into a number if you want to enumerate this in some way?
Well, you could some numbers against the text in its simplistic form. No, you could. I think we were looking at almost go back to a blank sheet of paper a little bit and say, right, what 4 BANTs or 4 budget? How do we want to categorize our budget, our budget responses, our budget criteria, or against each of those, can we put a score against?
And at its simplest, it might be 0 and 1. Yeah, maybe they're binary. Have they got 1 or haven't they? 0 and 1. I think I prefer a bit more nuanced than that, and then maybe have a sliding scale. But there's an argument for making that non-linear as well. Why just have 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Why not have 1, 2, 5?
Yeah.
Once it reaches a threshold point of sounds exciting, well, put it up to the maximum you can for that dimension and have something where a really good solid answer on the B for BANT outweighs a mediocre answer on the needs, let's say, or vice versa. So.
Yeah, I think that's important as well if you're looking at all of the deals in the pipeline, to really have that. If you've got something that's maybe a little bit exponential in terms of its scoring criteria, it does help deals stand out, or maybe within a particular deal, you've got the various elements of BANT that maybe we're really strong on the budget, but the timing's wrong or something, or whatever it is, or not scoring as high. So having that kind of scoring system.
And weighting between the 4 dimensions, or they don't have to all be scored out the same number, do they?
No.
You could say that if the needs are high enough, they'll find a way.
Yeah, exactly. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot to think about. I think probably before jumping into whatever CRM you're using, I mean, obviously we're using HubSpot to do these things. Having that blank sheet of paper, whiteboard exercise, think it through and design what's right for your business, isn't it?
Yeah, think about it, but don't think about it too long.
Yeah.
Come up with something that works. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. That one again. Okay, so you got some sort of scoring system. We use the automation within HubSpot called Workflows, which will pick up your selected drop down and give it a number and then multiply up, add it together, that type of thing. So you come up with a score. So let's say you've got to the point then where you've got a score which represents how well qualified this deal is at this point in time. Now that could evolve over time. So it's quite useful to be able to see if you rescore that, a month later or when something happens, to see whether that's continuously going up or does it take a step back or does it never get above 20%, that type of, that's useful to know. But what are you going to use that number for? There's a few things we could trigger with that, isn't there?
Yeah, just an interesting thought just popped in my head again on the criteria. Do you put a decay into it as well? Because
it's true.
That's another.
I haven't got back to you recently. It's 6 months old.
Stuck at a point, which often happens, isn't it? But so that's just another thing to think about. But I suppose, what can you use it for? So there's various bits depending on how I suppose you want to automate your pipeline, and there are different views on this in terms of, we've been in discussions recently. Should your pipeline be overly automated? How much of an automation does it need in it versus the human interaction? So I guess that's more kind of maybe sales philosophy, but you can use the automation to trigger certain actions. So maybe there's the MD wants to know when a certain deal has got to a certain number of points or something. So you can just fire off an email.
Or the sales director,
or whoever needs to know.
Yeah.
There's ways of doing that. There's ways of maybe kind of, like I say, deal rotation. It could be if it's stuck at a certain point for a certain amount of time, a certain number of points, rotate the deal.
Yeah. Could go into your forecast or a different level of the forecast once it reaches a certain point. You could stop it doing certain things as well. We talked earlier about the cost of, say, engineering getting involved in the quotation process. Maybe they're not allowed to until the qualification score reaches whatever your threshold is, 30%, 40%.
So you can't move it along the pipeline.
You could have gateways. Can't go beyond,
So, I suppose really it's pretty flexible in terms of...
Yeah, once you've got the number, if you were given the number today for free, you'd think of loads of ways
to do it.
And especially, even for those people that say, we don't have enough deals, we work every deal. Well, maybe you shouldn't be. Maybe if something is a 5% on sales qualification score, rather than putting effort into it, because at least it looks good being busy, leave it to have its own life. Don't kill it off. Let it have its own life, and they may come back. But focus your attention on getting another deal to that level or beyond. Go do a bit of prospecting, or do a bit of research, or tap up your network, or do something else that might be more worthwhile. So that may be good to do.
It's amazing, really, think like what you can drive off a number, and it's maybe an interesting exercise for people to think about. Think, well, what if you had a BANT score or a score for each element of BANT? What would you then do if you had a way of quantifying that opportunity?
Yeah, this almost goes back to our vision podcast, probably 10 podcasts ago. Have a very vivid description of what the future state might look like, then you're more compelled to try and get there. So imagine a state now where all of your deals had a perfect qualification score against them, and you were able to stop time being wasted on poor ones. You think, that sounds quite attractive. Yeah. I might go for that, and then you want to put it in.
Yeah, like deal description.
And another part of that sort of description of the future, if you had one for me, and it came up in a meeting I was in recently where we were looking at the won lost analysis. Yeah. Also businesses do that, don't they? They look at all the deals that have closed either successfully or not in a period, and you have this one lost, and there's always that third category of project didn't go ahead, and there's a suspicion, well, is that where the lost ones have been hidden? Did they really not go ahead? But anyway, imagine if, again, vivid description of the future, if for every one of those deals in each of the columns, for the one and the lost and the closed, and they're sort of cancelled, what was their qualification score?
Yeah.
Do we tend to win all the deals that are qualified over 50% or 70%?
Yeah.
All the ones that are below 30, do we tend to lose them? Is that's what you'd expect?
Yeah.
Or actually, are we finding that there's several in there with qualified at 10% and we win them?
Yeah.
And they make us rich. I would want to know that, just to sort of give that feedback loop. Otherwise, you're just putting a score on it and then feeding the machine for the sake of it. But if you, as the sales director or salesman, had that feedback loop to say, let's just, experience has told us when they don't get to 30% by 3 months in or 3 weeks in or whatever, it really isn't likely to go ahead. It might. There's still a 1 in 10 chance, but we're better off spending our time on these other deals over here rather than sweating this one.
Absolutely. I think that's an important point, isn't it? That continuous improvement, as it, rather than just gets to the end of the pipeline and it sort of drops off like a lemming type of thing. Actually, well, how do we build that back into the process? So it's not sit down and do a BANT criteria and then carry on. It's maybe every 3 months, 6 months, build it into your review.
Yep.
Are we asking the right questions here? Are there do we need to tweak our qualification scoring or?
Yeah. Good. There you go. So that's just a round robin of BANT amongst all the others of Champ and Scotsman. And
you could say that we've had a good bit of banter.
I was going to avoid that. Couldn't resist. Good. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that. It's a good summary. And as Rich said at the beginning, we will put a list of all of the other ones on the blog. If you go to wellmeadow.co.uk and look for the blog, you'll be able to find them all on there, and we'll link them through to authoritative articles talking a bit more about them if you want to go that route. And as we said at the beginning, this is episode 20. So next time, it being our 21st, which apparently marks us out as being the the 1% of podcasts that get this far. We'll do a little bit of a retrospective of how we got to 20 and some of the learning points we've had on the way. So if you're interested in doing your own podcast, you can pick up from that. And just a bit of preview, I think the one after that, we're going to do a little bit of a summary of all the subjects we've talked about in these first 2021 podcasts, just to give a bit of a highlights, best of album. We'll do that. And then I think the one after that, if you're really starting to look ahead, we've got a little treat coming up around Shakespeare's birthday, where we've been a little bit silly just to try and tie in a serious business subject around Shakespeare when we get to that point in April.
Plenty to look forward to.
Good. So you've been listening to the SME Growth Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe to us, follow us and share us. And thank you if you already have. But more importantly, please tell people you know in your business and in other businesses that might be interested in hearing some of this material, and tell them to Google for SME Growth Podcast and we'll come up number 1. In the meantime, good luck with your businesses and see you next week.